Chris Carter is expected to be back in Parliament tomorrow, but the expenses saga involving former Labour ministers is having a wider impact on the party and its leader Phil Goff. They have taken significant hits in tonight's 3 News Read Research poll. For all the latest results, we are joined by political editor Duncan Garner in the studio. Duncan.
Good evening. Our poll of 1,000 voters was taken right in the middle of the expenses saga over the last 7 days, and it's no surprise that Labour has come off worst. Let's go and have a look at the numbers. National is up 3.2% to 55.3. That gives them a hugely commanding result, and they have 69 seats out of a 120-seat Parliament. Labour's down 3.3 to 30.5, and just as they were starting to go up in our last poll, they'll be disappointed. The Greens subside a bit to 7.5, although that is still a strong result for the Greens, and the other minor parties really do just make up the numbers. New Zealand First, little bounce there at 1.8, ACT 1.6, no change, and United Future, they've just got 1 vote out of 1,000. In the preferred Prime Minister rankings, have a look at this. John Key is still head and shoulders above the challengers, 49.6. He's up about 0.5%. Look at this, Phil Goff, 5.1%. He is down from 7.5. He will be disappointed. Clearly the expenses saga having a bit of an impact on Phil Goff, and he's only just above Helen Clark at 4.9. He just cannot shake her, can he? And Winston Peters is 2.8. He still has a few supporters out there who want him in the top job. But it's Labour that really is being punished tonight, and despite Goff's hard line he took with his errant MPs, voters just are not rewarding him.
Made a statement.
Are you sorry?
I made a statement.
Sorry?
Labour had a meltdown of a week.
Excuse me. Are you sorry for misleading taxpayers?
Chris Carter initially refused to apologise for taking the taxpayer for a ride.
Look, there's going to be a health and safety issue here in a minute.
Boot up the backside from the boss finally saw him say sorry.
I'm not happy with this response. I've sent him home, and I've asked him to think about his future.
Shane Jones also had an embarrassing story to tell.
I shouldn't have, but from time to time I did watch blue movies.
And Phil Goff demoted them both. But the sorry saga's done nothing for the party in the polls. Labour takes a 3-point hit to sit at just over 30%.
Look, it's been a pretty tough week for Labour. The credit card issue needed to be addressed, and I've dealt with that.
Goff dealt with the fallout quickly on his return from China, but voters are not rewarding him for that. He drops to 5.1% as preferred Prime Minister, his worst result since October last year.
It's a challenge, but I know what I'm in politics for, and I'm going to keep on doing it. Talking about the issues that concern New Zealanders, GST, rising prices and jobs, the credit card issue was a distraction from that.
National is the winner on the back of Labour's losses, up 3, and even National's incompetence in saying whether or not it would sell Kiwibank hasn't hurt.
Well, it's a good result for the government, but I think it's also a strong endorsement for the budget, which delivered for New Zealanders tax cuts of real value.
John Key remains popular. 69% of people think he's performing well, and slightly fewer voters think he's doing a poor job. For Goff, just 27.2% of voters think he's doing a good job. That's down almost 7 points. And 45.4% of voters think he's performing poorly. For Goff, these numbers will be depressing, and it's not because of his lack of work. Nothing is going his way. He's not connecting with the public, and he must now wonder whether he ever will. And the real problem for Labour and Goff is that there is just no ready-made replacement for him. He will take this party into next year's election. Let's make that clear. Shane Jones had been talked about as a potential challenger, but that's not going to happen now because of his choice of in-house movies at the hotel. But Goff just doesn't seem to connect with voters. Sure, he's hugely competent and he's been around 30 years, and voters really do seem to have made their minds up about him, and that does leave Labour stranded in the doldrums.